Good morning. We're glad you're still with us. If you are just joining us, we are at the Take Note leg of Morning at NTV, and this morning we are taking note of food crisis and security deepening across Africa in light of the workings of the African Union. Of course, this discussion comes on the backdrop of the 36th ordinary session of the African Union that was held in Addis Ababa over the weekend. We shall be looking into conflict across West Africa and how the military there continues to be one of the actors that define the political space and whether it actually ought to. We shall also be looking at integration and the fact that Africa continues to look at making sure that bargaining power is greater when going into international trade. The discussion is going to be, well, given perspective by very youthful discussants. I'm joined by Mr. Richard Byamukama. Mr. Byamukama, you're an analyst, as well as Maxon Muhwezi, a member of the NRM Youth League, to help us make sense of the African Union's latest strides within the prism of the youth. So, welcome to the program. Let me begin with Mr. Byamukama because Maxon Muhwezi is a usual suspect.
So, it's a pleasure
yes.
to be here with you. And good morning, our viewers. Let's share together and look into how the future of this world, specifically the future of Uganda, stands.
Yeah.
For good and make. I'm also a member of the NRM. Like Muhwezi.
Hey, sorry.
I'm Muhwezi,
yes.
not Muhwezi. So, and we have known each other. Although I didn't study from Makerere like him, so but we know each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's good to have you on the show, and of course, we shall be looking forward to hearing your perspectives on the issues of governance and politics across the African continent. Mr. Muhwezi, what do you make of the latest African Union summit?
Very interesting. Good morning, viewers. I'm happy once again to have the opportunity to be hosted here on Morning at NTV. Chris, the world now is 8 billion people, the population. 16% of that, about 1.4 billion people, are in Africa, the Africans. And 98% of that 1.4 billion people
in Africa,
yes, are in extreme and moderate poverty. You can imagine. Since the fourth and the 4th century of Vasco da Gama, then when we were attacked by the coloniality in 18th century, up to 6th of March 1957, the first independence of an African country, Ghana. Africa has been struggling with quite a number of challenges, a wide spectrum of them. Talk of poverty, talk of coloniality, imperialism, talk of poor education, talk of civil wars, talk of quite a number of them. But look, just like the United States of America, the European Union, Asian tigers, the question and antidote, even prescription to all these challenges, is in integration. After all that period I've mentioned, the only solution to these challenges is basically in integration. And when I'm talking about integration, I'm talking about quite a number of and kinds of integration. You're looking at military integration, you're looking at economic integration, you're looking at social integration, you're talking about political integration, economic and administrative. But in this particular case, the African Union that took place over the weekend was basically looking at 3 points. One was to celebrate 60 years of establishment.
A milestone on its own.
Very, very interesting. Number 2 was to elect the next or the new chairperson, His Excellency Assoumani
Azari,
yeah, the president of
Union
Comoros.
of Comoros.
Number 3 was to adopt, but also to look at the theme and the acceleration of African continental free trade area. That is going to look at quite a number of issues, basically looking at intra-Africa trade. That is going to steer development, movement of goods and services. Is going to look at the reducing tariff and non-tariff barriers to almost 90%. To also look at the free transport, to look at the financial services, to look at communication services, to look at quite a number of issues, but basically looking at how Africa can trade within itself.
Okay.
So basically 54 countries, a block of 55 countries. First look at South America. Countries that are not strong and not integrated. They are far much weaker compared to the United States of America, compared to the European Union. So the whole issue is the 1.4 billion people trading amongst themselves, manufacturing. Look at this. 20% of income of Africa goes to importation, import bill. 20% of our income. We use that to develop other countries. For instance, when Uganda has got surplus, maize, sugar, milk, and all those goods, where does that surplus go? When we say we have surplus food, and you hear it in the neighborhood or Somalia, about 2 million people are dying of hunger. And here you have surplus sugar, you have surplus food.
Okay.
What exactly is the problem?
All right.
It means the movement
of goods is still curtailed.
Absolutely.
All right.
So, but before before that,
quickly wrap that up.
We on the 27th of July, 2018, President Museveni presented a paper on African integration, and maybe he's not glorified and given credit he deserves. When you look at that strategic paper, and you look at what the AU Summit 2023 adopted and discussed, it is exactly
what
the
is
content.
It? Okay. Byamukama, what do you make of the AU Summit that ended? And hearing Mr. Maxon Muhwezi speak very fervently about integration in all its forms, do you think we are either moving slowly on integration, or we should get the brakes, or rather hit the brakes?
So talking about integration, you see, you are talking to a security expert. After my law school, I enrolled for security studies.
You're a security expert.
Are we safe?
After
no, if you're an expert, then we are safe.
So, like when you are talking about integration, without talking about political integration, all these things are presumed to remain on paper, and we shall not achieve anything by mere discussions, except if we totally achieve the political integration of Africa, or you know, those regional states. You see, we have issues within these regional blocks. We have issues in the East African community. ECOWAS has issues with some member states. The same is happening in SADC. So, like going to, you know, the AU summit and then talking about integration when Kenya and Uganda are fighting over sugar imports, exporting sugar to each other. So those are neighbors. They should be trading together. So, like talking about economic integration alone without talking about political integration, integrating the whole of Africa into one political administrative system. By only talking about economic integration, that is unrealistic, because when you see the levels of production in Africa, African countries almost produce similar goods, similar commodities, so you can't sell sugar in Rwanda, for example, when Rwanda is also yes. So that is the only limitation, because the levels of technological development in Africa are still very low, so that hinders the economic integration and free trade area that the AU summit is proposing.
You seem to suggest that we must not push economic integration ahead of political federation.
You see,
is it realistic to achieve a political federation that is agreement or seeking harmony, or finding harmony for that matter, on contentious aspects of politics before you can even trade amongst each other? Absolutely,
because when you study the trends of African politics, it is there can't be that economic integration and free trade area when member states are grappling with political issues, unresolved political issues. You are seeing what is happening between Congo and Rwanda. These are neighbor countries that are fated to living together. They are almost becoming Armenia and Azerbaijan. You know, those conflicts. Yes, they are fated, totally fated to live together. Nagorno-Karabakh.
Yeah.
So, like, it is possible, because since the AU evolved in 2002 after the disbanding of Organization of African Unity, so these are the issues it has been pushing. These are issues that have been discussed several times, time and again, and the same have been discussed by these regional blocs, but nothing has totally been achieved. So yes, so unless otherwise we achieve that political realization or achieve a uniform political, because our population is, we have a population of 1.4 billion people, citizens who live in Africa. That is a population equivalent to the one of China, a one single state that has
but of course, given the geography, China also.
Yes. So when you see the levels of production of productivity in Africa compared to the levels of productivity in a single member state of China, you see there is quite something missing, because when you see the trends in Africa, like when you go to every single household, it has either a Chinese manufactured commodity, which is not the case in Africa. You find like goods produced in Africa are considered substandard because of the low levels of technology. So unless we sit together, have a common political political system.
Let's throw that need or question of sitting together. We've sat together since time immemorial, especially when it comes to realization of political independence for many of the African countries. We continue to sit together, and over the weekend, leaders sat together for the summit. Shall we continue sitting?
Let me just say something. He was trying to compare the population of China and the population of...
No, he was giving context, not comparing.
And China did not come to number 2 in terms of global economy and until 1991, when that market he's talking about open to the global scale and to the global world for trade and others. They had been stagnant in number 10 global rankings until 1991 when they opened. So the question here we are talking about is, first open up, let Africa grow that internal market. That internal market, the whole idea is to address one of the, the most strategic bottlenecks, about 5 or 10, that are stifling Africa's development. And one thing leads to the other. You cannot have political integration before you accelerate economies on the African continent. What comes first, the economy or politics?
No, perhaps his argument is that realigning the politics of the day allows for creating, for example, peace and security.
And
for trade,
he's right.
For trade to flourish.
He's right.
Also,
What
the economy also depends on the politics of a particular state. Because when you see...
Hold on a second. One of the challenges that actually causing insecurity here in Africa is unemployment. You know that. So you don't actually address the symptom. You address the cause. You get? So the cause is unemployment. The cause is poverty. The cause is a lack of money. People are dying, and so they say, let me also go establish a rebel group somewhere. Let me go to Eastern Congo and also grab some land that is rich with minerals. So the question is, what do you do first? Do you address the cause or you address the symptom? So the cause is unemployment. The cause is poverty. The cause is, that's why they are saying, since we are struggling, Europeans are struggling to come here. We are also struggling to go to Europe. And we are saying we have got capacity as long as this Africa opens. Everyone trades with another. You can go, you have sugar, you can go and buy this, you can go free movement without barriers and non-tariff barriers. Then after, as you address those small issues, I want to be very much sure that the African Union, slowly, and these regional blocs are marshalling support for political integration. Slowly. But the biggest issue is money. Without money, then you're having foreign arms and hands funding us. And the moment they start funding you, they cannot allow political integration. Okay. Because the moment you become strong politically, you're not going to listen to them at all.
Yeah, Richard Biawakama, I like the argument when you say the politics of the day must first be dealt with. You have followed SADC and how the negotiations, deliberations and interventions and there are dealt with. And you have also monitored or perhaps followed the East African community.
Absolutely.
What is it that EAC can adopt from SADC in moving a political federation ahead?
You see, the biggest issue with the East African community is, you know, when there is that political hegemony for a long period of time, it creates chiefdoms. So a chiefdom, it is very hard to decide for a chiefdom. So the relationship between Uganda and Rwanda, these are chiefdoms, and that's why the conflict in DRC is escalating, because there is that, we presume, hegemony. Yes, we presume that there is a plot to overthrow one hegemony in order to isolate the other. So after overthrowing one hegemony, the other hegemony will be isolated, and decision making will be much easier. So like the biggest issue of the East African integration is they are the same issues that Nyerere faced during Nyerere and Idi Amin. So they are the same political issues that the East African Federation, East African community is facing in order to realize the East African political federation. Because we have seen these member states quarreling over petty issues. For example, you saw how they are grappling with sugar deals, rice imports. So those are petty issues to a community that has a bigger cause of achieving a wholesome market. Because I was watching a discussion about how we can include Somalia in the East African community. Yes. You see, unless we first resolve the pending issues within the community, we are less likely to realize what SADC has realized. We are less likely to realize what ECOWAS has realized. Because when you saw how ECOWAS handles its security pretext. Because
how does it handle it?
When Laurent Gbagbo defeated was it Rasani Ouattara defeated Laurent Gbagbo.
Yeah.
So the ECOMOG came in to help restore the sovereignty of the people because the incumbent had refused to hand over power. The same happened during Adama Barrow recently when Yahya Jammeh failed to hand over power to the duly elected president. So the conflict in DRC couldn't be really of that havoc in the presence of the East African community, with the presence of the East African standby force.
Okay,
yes,
interesting,
because, yes.
Interesting submission there. It continues, it flows from one end to the other with so much fluidity. You speak about ECOMOG. ECOMOG is a force that has mandate to engage.
Yes.
The East African forces don't have mandate to engage.
But they were granted authority to go and operate in DRC.
Operating,
and it is only Kenya that sent troops to the DRC. So that shows, that leaves us in suspicion that probably there is something not going on that is not right.
You've already knocked on that something, and Mr. Muhwezi, that something is effectively hegemony that he's talking about as being part of the...
The hegemonic powers we are talking about really are, in my opinion,
Uganda and Rwanda, the chiefdoms.
In my opinion, so tiny in terms of integration, because you see, the Democratic Republic of Congo has been in turmoil for a long period of time, even with or without Uganda.
And you can trace Uganda's involvement from as far back as 40, 50 years ago.
And even the turmoil and turbulence in eastern DRC, one is pegged on its wealth as a country. It is pegged on foreign hand. It is also pegged on a stateless society, because we know that about 33% of that country is stateless. The state has no hand there.
The state has no.
You get, so
it
is very.
It may have a hand.
Yeah, it is very
not
very.
The presence.
It is inaccurate, therefore, to say that all of those three core reasons can be reduced to Uganda and Rwanda fighting over Democratic Republic of Congo. But let me say this: Congo coming to East Africa, seeing Burundi, seeing Rwanda, seeing Kenya, seeing Tanzania, and now we know Somalia is likely to join as soon as possible. I can tell you that is a big statement. In terms of, because you see, the more they come together, the more they discuss. I've seen more than 5 meetings of heads of state of the East African community, allowing to discuss, allowing the discussion to flow, to find punitive measures to solve all these issues around East Africa. And let me tell you, it is bad manners to say, for instance, that East Africa is not strong in terms of integration. It is bad manners, because we have seen a force that can negotiate, that can freely move, that can freely trade. You know, Kenya is our biggest export destination. That is not something to joke about. You know, Tanzania is almost close to even South Sudan here. Okay, so I don't want. Yes, I know we have all these issues, and trust me, even when Uganda pulls out of Congo, even when Rwanda pulls out of Congo, Congo will still have those specific issues. But it is better when Uganda is there and Rwanda is on table and Kenya is on table to find solutions, the lasting solutions, particularly eliminating those foreigners that have been there since 1990s and they are doing nothing.
Mr. Byabakama, you said you are a security expert. Very quickly, I have to link. I have to link to my colleague Stephen Mbide, who is standing by to discuss land matters, and that's a conflict in Apa, that is in northern Uganda. Very quickly, in 1 minute. Security, politics can guarantee the economic environment needed for us to move forward.
Absolutely.
What do you think is the panacea for our security concerns in the region and Africa? Very quickly, let's use a minute.
Most member states have had a fragile security situation where the citizens live in dire security conditions, because you see, most of you people focus more on state security, but for security students and security experts, look at the whole context of security, because security doesn't only mean that state security, that you don't have any insurgency, you are not fighting any insurgency, there's no terrorism like Somalia or northern Nigeria, but we look at
where should the intervention be?
Human security context, because
that's a huge thing to discuss right now.
Yes, because these are human security is the lead cause of the instabilities, because these are the issues that Ernesto Che Guevara of the Cuban Revolution wrote about, because when there are some issues that affect human security in the society, it is possible that there will be an insurgency, and that insurgency creates more of the security problems. So unless we address the human security context, we address food security, we address unemployment, we address...
All right. You discuss a human issue, the human insecurity. Let me just go to Stephen Mbide, who is also discussing what is no doubt something that causes a lot of insecurity in many communities, especially in Uganda. In Apa, there's a land conflict, and my colleague Stephen Mbide is standing by to talk to Kilak North MP, Honorable Anthony Akol. A very good morning, Stephen Mbide.
Good morning to you. And this Honorable Anthony Akol is not only the MP for Clark North, as Chris you have said, but also the chairperson of Acholi parliamentary group. But we know that this conflict that came back to life mid last week is just over 10 years now. We want to find amicable solution for the people of Amulu, for the people of Adjumani over this conflict in Apa Township. But Honorable, for over 10 years now, over 23 people have at least lost their lives. When will sanity and peace prevail in Apa Township? What is causing all this conflict, back-to-back conflict?
Well, first and foremost, this area, Apa, is an area that around 1911 to 1913, the people lived in this area. And they were removed by the British government then and brought to the current area of Gulu City. The area was called Gulu Gulu. Unfortunately, when the people were brought in Gulu City, around 1963, 1964, the area was gazetted for wildlife control hunting area. It was called Kelak Control Hunting Area and then East Madi Control Hunting Area. These were the two places where the conflict is. They border each other. And sometimes it is difficult for you to know the boundary between these two areas. But around 1972, under the leadership of Idi Amin, Kelak Control Hunting Area was degazetted. And I also need to bring to your attention that when you are talking about control hunting area, that means the human settlement is allowed. But the only thing that happens is that you are regulated on the animals that you can kill and the animals you should not kill. And therefore, people live together with the animals in that area, and they were living together with the animals in the area. So 1972, Kelak Control Hunting Area was degazetted by Idi Amin, and people started living in the area. Some people even got land title in the area. Then there was East Madi Control Hunting Area that was created in 1964, and it was in place. And also people were living in it, and predominantly those were the Acholi people, not the Madi people. But then, when the war in northern Uganda escalated to another level, the government removed the people from the area, and they brought them to Pabo Control and Pabo IDP camps, the internally displaced camp of Pabo, and some of the people went to a camp that was called Omer 2. This is where the two camps where the people in Apa were displaced. Now, as they were displaced, around 2001, 2002, the process of gazetting this area to become wildlife reserve started. And as they were in the camp in 2002, the area, which is around 1,702 square kilometers, out of this area, 827 square kilometers was gazetted for human settlement. For animals, that is wildlife reserve, while the rest of the area was degazetted for human settlement. And when you want to know where there is unfairness, the area that was occupied by the Acholis were gazetted for wildlife reserve, while the area that was occupied by Madi predominantly was then degazetted for human settlement. And this is where the gist of the problem started. So when the war in northern Uganda was subsiding, and the government came out and said that you have to return to your home, there was a gradual process of return as people were moving back to their homes. People moved from the main IDP camps to the settler camps. From the settler camps, they moved to their villages. As they were going to their homes, around 2011, their area was gazetted now officially as a wildlife reserve. And then 2012, Wildlife Authority, together with the police, went to the people, evicting them. And people were confused. Wait a moment, what is it? What has happened here? This is my home. I have my tree here where I was living before. I have the grave of my grandparents who are here, buried here. How can you tell me to leave the area?
Reserve, and it's thought that the people are settling in the game reserve.
That's why I'm telling you, that is the point when people realized and they came to know that the area which was their home has been gazetted for wildlife reserve. And that is where the unfairness comes about. Because in the constitution of Uganda, you need to consult the people who are the true owners of the land, which was not done. They were in the ITP camp. If anything, they started consultation from Gulu district. And Gulu district said, no, you cannot gazette this area for wildlife reserve when the true owners are in the IDP camps. Then they went to Ajumani district. They went ahead and gazetted the place. And this is where the beginning of the conflict was. And I must tell you, from that time up to now, on the Acholi side, we have lost over 23 people. And many over 200 are injured. And to make it worse, this has been done by the people who are supposed to protect their lives. The UPDF, the police, and also the people who come from Ajumani to attack, majorly the Madi people organized by the politicians to attack the people.
Okay,
now the question comes in. Last week on Wednesday, we just got communication actually on Monday that the Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda is coming to Apa to pronounce the cabinet decision. And they assume that is a lasting solution to Apa, which to me is not the case. So on Wednesday, when the Prime Minister came, we thought we would find her. Around 11 a.m., we found the third Deputy Prime Minister with the cabinet decisions. And if anything, this cabinet decision was made in 2019. And there was some pronouncement by the President against those cabinet decisions. And among those pronouncements, number one was the late Right Honorable Speaker Jacob Olanya's committee that was put in place to make sure that cabinet resolution should be put on hold, and then amicable solution should be found as a lasting solution for APA. Apart from that, the President himself promised to appoint the Judicial Commission of Inquiry to make sure that amicable solution for APA is reached. Okay. Thirdly, the same President appointed the cultural institution of Madi and Acholi for the same solution. And above all, the Parliament of Uganda appointed the Select Committee, which came out clearly. And if anything, if somebody wants to understand...
As all that happens, when I go back to studio, I know when you, with a team of other leaders, chased the Prime Minister and the team from government, I still saw that all the peace did not prevail in Amolo. Now, just to understand, moving forward, you as members of Parliament, you as Chori, also the Madi people, what's going to be done to make sure that, yes, peace prevails in Madi, finally?
Number one, it is not right to talk about chasing the Prime Minister. I don't have the right. I don't have a gun. This is a cabinet, head of cabinet and head of business from the government side. The only problem is that she did not understand what was on the ground. Before she came on the ground, we had agreed with the team, which was headed by Honorable Rukia, that the cabinet decision is here, yes, but then this decision was not based on facts on the ground. And we gave her the facts on the ground. When they got the facts on the ground, the team, which included the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, the Minister of Security, and the Minister of State for Tourism, understood the reality on the ground and said, well, we have understood the reality, which is not in line with the cabinet decision. So for us, the team said, they are going to come back to the cabinet, give the cabinet the truth on the ground, and then they have to review their decision. Because one of the contentious issues, when you are dealing with the people who are power, you cannot assume that they are squatters on the land. They are the true owners of the land, who are the bona fide owners. They live there, their grandparents are buried there. And when you are discussing with them, you cannot generalize that we are giving you 10 million, we are giving you 20 iron sheets, we are giving you 20 iron sheets. Going forward, as members of parliament from Acholi sub-region, we are looking forward to meet the president to understand if this directive is from the president that he has decided to abandon all the different steps that he was making to make sure that this issue come to an end, if he was the one who delegated the prime minister to go and dictate on the people. That is number one. Number two, we are going to court. This matter is in court. There are two issues in court, and there are two cases which has never been settled by the court, and there is a court injunction. And if anything, government is acting with impunity and going against the court injunction which is in place in court. Number three, we are going to the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda. Parliament has the right to pronounce that no steps should be continued until the due process is done. And this is what we are doing as a Chole parliamentary group, but as a leader of Kilak North. But at the same time, we are looking at the option of going beyond Uganda because this government is acting with impunity.
Thank you. Anthony Akol, Clark North Member of Parliament, but also the chairperson of Choli Parliamentary Group, and we hope peace will prevail in Upper Township as government and these members of Parliament, the area leaders, try to ensure that they come to an amicable solution because the people of Upper need to have
for that interview with the MP Anthony Akol, representing Clark North, commenting on the Upper land conflict there. Of course, land being very integral to security, and many times the conflicts that we see not only in Uganda but across the continent very much caused by the need for some to assume other people's land, or for those that don't have to finally get their hands onto some of that land. By guests for the morning show, or rather the discussion on Africa's food crisis and the insecurity concerns in light of the African Union Summit have been Mark Season Muhwezi. He's an NRM youth leader, as well as Mr. Richard Byamukama. I was going to say Byaruhanga. Sorry about that.
But we are the same.
An analyst.
The same.
Byaruhanga?
The same name.
Byamukama?
Yes, same thing.
Those are two different names.
But same thing.
They mean the same thing?
Yeah.
Oh, perhaps. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for making time and, of course, giving us a perspective and your thoughts on the issues of the day. That will do it for Morning at NTV, this 20th day of February 2023. It's the beginning of the week, so I hope you're in the finest of shapes to go and perfect the hustle. Go make some money. There's a lot of money in this economy. You just have to be smart, but also work hard. Morning at NTV, on behalf of the team that is responsible for the work behind the scenes, many thanks. I'll be out of here. Catch you later on NTV at 1.